Hi guys, it's Alara from Witchy Webby Weave. I felt inspired to do a video for y'all. So this one's going to be a witchcrafting video about making an intentioned bracelet. I kind of nicknamed it Anxiety Begone, and this is actually going to be a birthday gift for Alex. And I thought that this was something that maybe would be helpful or useful to someone because I don't know about y'all, but I uh, I suffer a little bit with a lot of anxiety, and I know that Alex does. And I wanted to make something for her that she could kind of wear on her that would help deal with some of that anxiety, help bring her back to center, help reground her, and just kind of help her deal with all of those anxious feelings sometimes when they especially get overwhelming. And I kind of wanted to show a little bit and talk a little bit about making an intentioned bracelet specifically. So you can see my little platter. I already have all the beads set out. And this is the pattern that I'm going to be making today. This is the bracelet. I made one for myself just kind of as a tester, and because I was feeling myself, I was kind of feeling like I needed some extra help with my anxiety here recently. I've been going through a little bit at work and stuff, so I kind of made this to begin with. But this bracelet is going to be made with Blue Lace Agate, Tourmalinated Quartz, Onyx, and Hematite. And, let me real quick just kind of talk to you about why I chose each of these particular beads. Here, let me put this off to the side. So the focal point that I kind of built the bracelet around is these beautiful Blue Lace Agate beads. And I can't tell if, I don't know if y'all can tell, but I was kind of inspired by this color. So that's also my nail color that I've got going on right now. I've got my little press-ons, being fancy. But yeah, I just love these Blue Lace Agate beads. They are so beautiful with their color, and they're gentle and they're soothing. And that's kind of what I based this bracelet around. The good thing about Blue Lace Agate is it is particularly good for helping people deal with anxiety and stress. It's very gentle, very calming. And in a lot of ways, it feels like soothing water almost, or it feels focus camera, come on, focus. There it goes. So Blue Lace Agate kind of feels like calm water, or sometimes to me it feels like resting on a cloud. It's got some very gentle energy to it, but at the same time it's very effective. And I don't know how much you guys already know, but I already have a bracelet and prayer bead business that I started up for myself, that I sell out of my local witchy store at Hearth Wisdom. So I kind of I took these beads from some of the stock that I already made. This isn't a bracelet that I actually sell. It's not a recipe that I sell. This is going to be particular, special for me and Alex, I think. I don't think I'm going to make any of these for the store. But that's kind of one of the reasons why I wanted to show y'all, is because even if I don't sell them, if y'all feel like would be something that y'all need, well, you can make it for yourself then. But yeah, so I got some Blue Lace Agate beads, and then it's got some, let's see if I can get it in the light. Focus. So I also have tourmalinated, I always say tourmalated, but it's tourmalinated. I always shorten it. But it's got quartz, these quartz beads that have tourmaline streaks, and inclusions throughout it. And these are really, really, really good for dispelling energy, for balance, in a lot of ways. I also look at focus. Oh my gosh, I'm having such a hard time with this focus. These are also really good for taking in high vibrations that are stressful vibrations. Sometimes high vibrations are really good and make you feel all nice and fuzzy, and you feel like you're like humming. But sometimes when when you get certain energy built up in you, and just feels like you're just a live wire and you're about to just like explode with all of this extra, built up, pent up energy in you. I find that, tourmaline and quartz really help kind of bring you back to balance, kind of siphon it off when it's too much, and kind of repurpose it and soothe it down. So it kind of helps focus. It really helps kind of bring you back into your stride and bring you back down into pace. So that's why those are included in this bracelet. And then hematite, which is very, very good for grounding. I don't know what it is about hematite, but this one is very particular for me, that I use it primarily for grounding. And I used to have a hematite ring that I wore a lot. But this is one of those that is very, very good at helping to keep you grounded, to keep you centered, to kind of keep you anchored. Because I know sometimes with anxiety, for me and for Alex, a lot of times when we get really anxious, we get caught up in our own headspace. And it's very, very hard for us to connect back down sometimes with the here and now and the reality of what's going on. So that's what this hematite will be very, very good for. It's just kind of bring you back down, bring you down to your center, keep you grounded, keep everything going, where it needs to be, and not all up in your headspace where you can't calm yourself down or think your way out of the situation, and get you back to your right mind. And then the last one is onyx. Now, for this bracelet, you can use any black bead that you like. If you prefer obsidian, or if you prefer tourmaline, just solid tourmaline. For this one, I specifically chose onyx for the fact that onyx is in a lot of ways, I feel like onyx is even better about helping you dispel extra pent up energy. Like tourmaline is really good for blocking, and obsidian is really good for like instant grounding, which that's already kind of taken care of by some of the other beads that I have. But onyx in particular, I find is in my opinion, the best one suited for dispelling and keeping, connecting with the other beads around it, and keeping a good flow and keeping a good balance within yourself and within the bracelet. So I chose onyx for that reason. So, but yeah, so I'm hoping this will be, really simple if you guys want to try it out. Because most of these are pretty easy to find beads. If you have, a local rock shop or someone that does gemstone beads, these are pretty easy to get a hold of. A lot of these I just looked up. There's a bead show that comes pretty regularly, almost once a month or every other month to my area. And it was, like a couple of bucks to get in. And I was able to buy, an entire string of these. And for the most part, these are pretty affordable beads, except I think the biggest priced item was the Blue Lace Agate, which in this case, if Blue Lace Agate is hard for y'all to come by, you can swap this out with Amazonite or rose quartz beads. You could also, and those two are really easy to get a hold of. You could even get those at at a, at, I don't know, I'm trying to think, like a craft store or something. A lot of times they'll have rose quartz or they'll have Amazonite. But I had these Blue Lace Agate beads, and I really love how they are with anti-anxiety and getting, helping to dispel stress and helping you deal with stress. So that's why I particularly chose these for Alex's birthday gift. So whenever I go into making an intention bracelet, there's really not a whole lot of materials that are involved or required. I just use for these beads, because these are, let me think, these are 8mm beads, for those of y'all that want to know. And then the string that I like to use is actually this brand. It's Stretch Magic, and this is the 8 millimeter thickness, and it's just a little 5 meter spool. This is just a little leftover spool that I have. I need to get more of this for the bracelets that I make for the store, but that's a tangent. But yeah, this is one of my favorite brands because it has a nice quality string. It's very thick. It's very sturdy. It has a little bit of give to it, but at the same time, it doesn't snap and break the way that some of the other brands that I've used. So far, this has been my favorite brand, and that's what I would recommend. And I just got this at I don't remember if I got it at Michael's or Joann's, but you can find it at almost any craft store. So it's really easy to come across. But you need beads, string, stretchy elastic string, and just some scissors. And these are my my intention scissors. I have a little bit of a spell woven into these. They're my they're for cord cutting, but in a lot of different ways. But I only use them for making bracelets and prayer beads. They're specifically for my magical crafting. But yeah, so this is really all that you need. And it's so simple and so easy, and that's kind of why I wanted to show this video to y'all as well. But prior to this video, I took all of my beads, and they've all been cleansed, and then I specifically charged each group of beads with their job, with their purpose, with their intention, so that everything knows its job, everything knows what it's supposed to be doing. I spent the time to program the hematite to be grounding and to be the anchor that keeps you attached to the floor. And then I spelled the onyx specifically for that disbursement and dispelling, that siphoning and continuing the flow. And for the tourmalinated quartz to help bring that balance between being too much anxious and being just the right, to keep you right where you need to be, and to help you get yourself rebalanced if you get out of sync, or if you start out at a place where you're already overflowing with anxious energy. And then the blue lace agate, I already programmed it to be very soothing and calming, and to help you work through those anxious moments, to be able to communicate with yourself and talk with yourself, and help keep that healthy flow of energy, and to be able, if you're in an anxious state, to be able to work your way out of it. And I'm sorry, I know my hands are like flowing back and forth. I talk a lot with my hands. But yeah, so a lot of times with intention bracelets, I prefer to go ahead and pre-charge and to pre-cleanse and pre-charge my beads. And then also when I go into actually making the bracelet, a lot of times I will that's when I'll add intention as well, but I do it in the idea of, I'll just go ahead and start making it while I'm talking. But I go ahead, and while I'm putting the beads on the string, that's when I start putting in intentions for the beads as a whole, telling them how to work together. Because right now they just know their own individual jobs. They don't really understand what all the other beads are doing in it. And I'm just cutting enough of a cord that there's that it very loosely goes around my wrist, and there's extra. And then just make a little knot at the end. And just a little tip. Oh gosh, I forget how hard it is for me to tie a knot sometimes with nails on. See, this is what I get for being fancy for y'all. But one of my tips for making intention bracelets is, well, I have two different tips actually. No matter what string you get, I always suggest kind of doing a little bit of pre-stretching on the cord, just kind of like bouncing it back and back. And I wish my screen was higher so I could show y'all. But just bouncing it back and forth just to give it a stretch it out just a little bit, because you have to remember this string is going to get stretched every time you go to pull the bracelet on and off your wrist. And over time that kind of loosens the elasticity. So I kind of like doing some of the pre stretching on this elastic just so it stays tighter for longer. Because it's kind of like breaking in your shoes or breaking in breaking in a new pair of jeans. Just do that initial little bit, so that when you string it, they'll be tight and they'll stay tighter for longer, and it won't go as loose and saggy initially. And it'll give it more longevity as a whole. So that's my first tip for when you're making an elastic band bracelet. And then the other tip is I like hiding my knot. I like hiding whenever I tie it and I cut the cords, I like hiding that knot in one of the beads, inside of it, and pulling it through. But doing that requires a little bit of forethought, just because sometimes, and I made this mistake a lot when I first started making bracelets, because I like doing multiple knots, just make sure it doesn't come loose and it doesn't, the beads don't scatter everywhere. But the more that you knot it, the thicker that knot becomes, and it becomes harder and harder to pull it through that bead. So you kind of have to pre-plan a little bit on how, what bead you want to be on the end that is going to be the one that knot goes into. So a lot of times I'll kind of figure out my pattern and figure out where I want to start in the sequence when I'm building it, so that the bead with one of the largest holes is the one that is going to be the one that knot goes inside of. So it'll probably be this hematite bead. So that's going to be the one that I put on first, because that's where my knot is going to be. It's going to be at the very end. I hope I don't jinx myself and have trouble with this at the end when I put it together. But here, let me scoot it a little bit. Woo! Please don't go flying. But yeah. So this is the bead that I'm going to start with, because this is going to be the one that my knot goes into at the end. And then I'm just going to start, building my pattern. And as I'm going, I'm imagining that intention going through it. With every bead, I'm remembering the intentions that I already put into it. And then I'm thinking and putting forth that feeling of how I want the bracelet to work after its job is done. Because I find that is the best way. Where's my hole? There it is. That's the best way, I think, to get an intention bracelet in my own opinion. Oh my gosh, my camera is slipping. No. Stay. You were doing so well this entire time. But yeah. Sorry, I keep accidentally going off camera because I forget that my camera is all the way up in the far corner and not in the center of the pad, like I think that things should be. I keep having to readjust my camera. What was I talking about? But yeah, so a lot of times, there it is. I will do different things for different bracelets, and I'll do it based off of what my body tells me to do. So, for instance, there will be some bracelets that, because I make deity bracelets and I make intentioned bracelets for different purposes. But a lot of times I go based off of what my intuition is telling me as to how I program the bracelet as I'm putting it together. So sometimes I will do a spoken spell. I'll speak and weave that intention aloud into it as I'm putting it together. Sometimes I use more of a breath of life technique where I'm literally breathing. Oh my gosh, I'm tipping. Oh my gosh. I don't get it. I don't get it. I was so stable that entire first bit. Oh my gosh, stay. Here, I'm going to put my little baggie. This is the bag that I actually kept the beads in after I had charged it, after I cleansed and charged them. And this is kind of like their little holding bag while I was putting them together, or while I was putting what I needed together for the video. I'm just using it to keep the beads from rolling away. But yeah, so there are many different techniques that you can use or incorporate to put your intention into your bracelets. Where is that hole? So sometimes you can use spoken spells, to speak over your bracelet as you're putting it together. Or like sometimes I'll use breath of life, which is what I call, basically I build that intention and that feeling up into my body, and I gather it at the center of my core, at the center of my being, and until it's the majority of what I can feel. Just holding that intention, holding that thought, and that what I'm wanting to manifest, and then I breathe it out of my mouth and over the beads. Knowing that energy from my breath, because it's the thing that keeps me moving and living and thinking. There's a lot of power. Oh my gosh, I'm shaking talking about this. There's a lot of power in your breath. There is a lot of energy in the breath that keeps you, existing in this world. And so, gathering that intention into something so powerful, and then breathing it over the beads can be really something. Oh my gosh, how did I end up with an extra tourmalinated? You don't belong there. Oh well, you get to stay. You won't go into the bead, but you get to stay in the platter. Or sometimes, rather than doing breath of life, you can do just energy work with your hands. So building the energy, however you prefer to do your energy work, building it up in your hands, and then having that energy soak through your hands into the beads. Okay, and now that some people will put the energy into it, as they're stringing the beads, like what I did, where I kind of kept that energy and kept that that feeling that of the intention that I was looking for. I kept it in my hands as I was stringing those beads, and with every bead on, I was putting on the elastic, I could feel that energy building and building and building, until now these little puppies are vibrating. And that's probably why I'm shaking so bad. Which is sometimes it's kind of common for me putting stuff like this, depending on how much energy I'm soaking into a bracelet. Will depend on how much I get a little jittery. And I'll need to recenter and reground myself after this. I'll probably go have I'll have a nice cup of tea. That's normally really good at like bringing me back down and grounding me. But a lot of times that's how I prefer to do it. I prefer to build the energy as I'm putting the beads on. There's just something about, one, bead after bead after bead being strung, that is really powerful for me. But then sometimes after I have done all of that and they're on the string, I'll also take the moment to kind of run through them with my hands and put even more intention to them as a whole. It's like, this is what my, this is the spell that I'm putting into you, and this is what you're here to do as a whole. And now I like just going ahead and putting another knot in this other end once all of my beads are on there. Just because I am clumsy, and I won't lie to you, there have been so many times that I have been, going to knot a bracelet together, to to make a circle, and just I fumble it and just beads go everywhere. So I like putting little knots in each of my ends, just so if I drop it, it's still all one thing, and I don't have to go, hunting for beads. But so this is kind of what it looks like before we've put them together as a whole. And now I can just move this little platter out of the way. Oops. Yeah, just put it up there in the corner. Yeah, so this is kind of how it looks right now before it's been completed. So I just like to take the ends and I'm just going to make my first knot. And a lot of times this is the moment in the bracelet making where I can feel the energy vibrating at both ends. Oh my gosh, this knot is so much harder with nails. I can feel the energy vibrating at both ends of the beads. And when I put this first knot in, I often have the intention of feeling the energy anchoring it. Like I'm anchoring it into the bracelet when I put that first knot in. And, with the anchor, I'm connecting those two ends so that it becomes a cycle. So now the energy is circulating, through the bracelet. It's not just going, linear. It's now flowing and becoming that endless loop. And then with the second knot, I'm reinforcing that intention. I'm reinforcing, this is what I want you to do. This is the plan. This is the intent that I've put into you. And a lot of times I will do like a little bit of knot magic in here where I'll do a certain number of knots for, certain things that I'm doing. So a lot of times if I'm making something that is to manifest, I'll do multiples of 3 knots. If I'm doing something that is meant to be protective or meant to give stability or structure, I'll normally do 4 knots. If balance is what I'm going for, I will do multiples of 2. Prosperity, sometimes I will do 4 or I will do 8 knots, things like that. So there's a little bit of knot magic that goes into this, that goes into making the bracelets as well. See, I think that was 3. I'm going to do 1 more because I do want this to be a very stabilizing bracelet. I want when Alex is wearing this, I want it to feel like it's giving her some structure, feel like it's giving her some strength and, some foundation to it. So now I have my 4 knots. And I can feel the energy just cycling and cycling and cycling. And it's aware of what it's supposed to do, not just the individual beads, but now all of the programming is like, oh, we're supposed to be working together. This is what we're doing. And so now I've got a lot of heat coming off of this and a lot of energy. But now that, I've intentioned it when I knotted it together and I pulled it together and tied it. So that now, and then the intention I was putting into it as I was stringing them, they're like, okay, now I know we're supposed to be working together. So now this energy is just whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. And now that I've put in my knots to secure it and to anchor it and to like seal in that intention so it's not gonna go anywhere. Now it's time to do the cord cutting. And so I don't know why, but this is one of my favorite moments of making intentioned bracelets, on top of like doing the actual energy work and doing the intentioning, because I don't know what it is, but to me it's just so cool. A lot of times what I do with my cord cutting is I have the specific spell that I put into my scissors is that while I'm making an intentioned bracelet and I'm putting all this energy in, it's still connected to me. Even after I've knotted it and I've anchored it, I can still feel the connection to me. I can still recognize it as my energy. And so I still feel that connection. Now, I can't be having all of these bracelets that I sell and that I put out into the world just, being connected to me. For the rest of however long, they stay out in the world. I feel like I would just go insane. I would, if I walked into my witchy store and I felt every single bracelet that I ever made and all the little connections to my energy, it would be just way too much. So what I do is I put a spell into my scissors, into my cord cutting scissors, that not only when I cut, when I cut the bands to finish it up and put the knot inside of the beads, but I also have spelled it so that, gosh, come on. I always forget how different it is with the nails. I also put a spell on it so that when I snip the connection with myself. So now this energy is no longer connected to me. And I've worked the spell in my cord cutting scissors so that now when it's not connected to me anymore, I actually can't feel the energy anymore either. It's still there. And I've had to have some of my other, my other people that I know at my witchy shop. I've had to confirm with them that they still feel it. Because I can't. Now it just feels like a bracelet to me. It just feels like a regular bracelet. Even though that energy is still there and the energy is still working. So that's what I have to do with all of the bracelets that I make that are not for myself. And now that energy is detached from me and it's, that cord cutting has been completed, now I can hide that knot inside my bead and it'll be finished. So this is always the hard part for me because you kind of have to have a certain finesse with it. Oh, come on. Where you're trying, because I have snapped elastic. I've snapped elastic trying to get these knots inside of these beads. Don't get me wrong. It happens. It's really frustrating. Sometimes I was like, okay, we're going to try this again tomorrow. And I'll have to come back to it. And I may have to do this off camera because it's so hard sometimes it's basically knowing how much force. Yeah, I am going to take it off camera for a sec. Because it really comes down to how much force that you have to gauge to put inside of it. Because if you apply too much force, it'll break. If you don't apply enough force, you'll never get it in there. Come on, you. So you have to kind of do it with a gentle motion. Okay, so I had to struggle with it for a moment, but I finally managed to get it. So now the knot is hidden inside of the beads, and it's all a continuous cycle now. But this is going to be the bracelet that I end up giving Alex for her birthday gift. And I think that this pattern would lend itself pretty well to just about any kind of anxiety or stress bracelet that you want to make. The biggest thing just being, whatever your preference of black protective or dispelling bead is. So a bead that you prefer for grounding, something that helps, keep the balance of it, and then a stone that you find particularly peaceful and soothing. Because that's kind of just what went into me figuring out what beads I wanted to put into this. So I think that smoky quartz would also be a really good one to use in this type of bracelet, because that one's really good at dispelling and balancing out energy. For, I already mentioned for soothing beads, something like rose quartz or amazonite, or anything that really just kind of speaks to you. But yeah, that's pretty much it. So I guess I'll just leave it there. I hope that this was beneficial, or that, y'all at least enjoyed watching and listening to me talk about, how I make intentioned bracelets, and kind of the thought processes that go into that, and some of the different ways of putting that intention in. But I guess that's it. Many blessings. Bye.